The scoundrel sold his daughter's virginity to the Mafia Boss, but the Mafia Boss fell in love with her and became obsessed with her. Before things get intense, and they will, like this video and subscribe. We're creating the place for romance lovers on YouTube, the biggest, most passionate community anywhere, and I want you right here with us. The envelope sat on their kitchen table like a coiled snake. Sophia's hands trembled as she picked it up, her waitress uniform still smelling of grease and disappointment from her double shift. Inside was a single card, cream-colored, expensive. The kind of paper that whispered money in a language she'd never learned to speak. Valentino's. Saturday, 8 p.m. Come alone. Her stomach dropped. Everyone in Chicago knew that name. Marco Valentino didn't send invitations. He sent summons. And people who ignored those summons had a nasty habit of disappearing into the Chicago River wearing concrete shoes. Derek? Her voice cracked as she called for her husband. Derek, what is this? The apartment stayed silent. Too silent. She walked to their bedroom, and that's when she saw it. His closet half empty, drawers pulled open like broken teeth. On the dresser, another envelope. This one had her name written in his chicken scratch handwriting. Her fingers went numb as she opened it. Sophia, I'm sorry, I owed them money. A lot of money. This was the only way. The Don wanted something pure, something untouched. He's paying $500,000 for one night with you. I've already taken the money. You have to go. If you don't, they'll kill us both. I'm sorry. I love you. D. The letter slipped from her fingers. The room tilted. She grabbed the dresser to keep from falling as her brain tried to process words that didn't make sense together. Her husband sold her virginity, to a mob boss, for money. Now, ladies, I've seen some low-down, dirty, disgusting behavior in my time. And honey, I worked in Vegas in the 70s. But this was a special kind of evil. The man had promised to love and cherish her 4 years ago. Turns out he meant love and cherish himself, with her body as collateral. Sophia's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ms. Bennett, Saturday? Don't make me come find you. The Don doesn't like to wait. The call ended. She stared at her reflection in the bedroom mirror. 26 years old, dark circles under her green eyes from too many shifts, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Virgin, because she'd wanted it to mean something. Because she'd believed in love and wedding nights and forever. What a stupid little girl she'd been. Her phone buzzed again. Her mother. She couldn't answer. How do you tell your mother your husband sold you like livestock? That you were about to walk into the lion's den because the alternative was a bullet in both your skulls? Saturday was in 3 days. 72 hours until her life changed forever. Or ended. She had a feeling that with Marco Valentino, those might be the same thing. Valentino's restaurant occupied a corner in Gold Coast, like a king on a throne. All dark wood, soft lighting, and the kind of clientele that arrived in cars worth more than her yearly salary. Sophia stood outside Saturday night, her reflection ghostly in the polished window. She'd worn the only dress she owned that didn't scream broke waitress, a simple black number she'd bought for Derek's cousin's funeral 2 years ago. Appropriate, she thought bitterly. She was attending her own funeral too. The doorman, built like a refrigerator in an expensive suit, opened the door before she could knock. Ms. Bennett. You're expected. Expected. Like a package delivery. Like an Amazon order. Inside, the restaurant was emptier than she'd anticipated. A few tables occupied by men who looked like they could kill you with their salad forks if the mood struck. They all watched her walk through. Assessing, measuring, like meat at a butcher shop. This way, the doorman said, leading her past the main dining room to a private area in the back. Her heels clicked on marble floors that probably cost more than her car. Each step felt like walking to an execution. Her heart hammered so hard she thought her ribs might crack. But she kept her chin up. If she was going down, she'd go down with dignity. The doorman stopped at a mahogany door, knocked twice, then opened it without waiting for an answer. Ms. Bennett, Don Valentino. The room was intimate. One table, candles, a window overlooking the Chicago skyline. And sitting at the table, watching her with eyes the color of expensive whiskey, was Marco Valentino. Ladies, let me paint you a picture. The man was gorgeous in that dangerous way that makes smart women stupid. 6'3" of tailored suit and controlled power. Dark hair touched with silver at the temples. A jawline that could cut glass. And eyes, Lord have mercy, eyes that looked like they could see straight through your clothes and into your sinning soul. He stood as she entered. Old school manners from a very new school criminal. "Sophia, please, sit." His voice was smooth, too smooth, like poisoned honey. She sat because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. He moved with a predator's grace, pouring her wine with hands that she knew had ordered men's deaths. "You're more beautiful than the photo he showed me," Marco said, settling back into his chair. "Derek really is a fool. You know what he did." "Not a question." Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "I know what he proposed. Gambling debts are tedious things." He swirled his wine. "He owed me $300,000, offered me something worth more to clear his debt and make a profit. Me. You." His eyes locked on hers. "Your innocence, specifically. Apparently that's rare enough to be valuable." The clinical way he said it made her stomach turn. "And if I refuse?" Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Then Derek's body floats in the river by Monday, and you'll spend the rest of your very short life wishing you'd said yes." Sophia's fingers tightened around her wine glass. The crystal was so delicate she could shatter it with one squeeze. Kind of like her entire life right now, beautiful and fragile and one wrong move from destruction. "So I don't actually have a choice," she said quietly. Marco leaned back, studying her with those predator eyes. "Everyone has choices, Sophia. You chose to marry a degenerate gambler. He chose to bet money he didn't have. I choose to collect debts." He paused. "You can choose to walk out that door right now. And then you kill us both. I protect my investments." He set down his glass. "But let me be clear about something. I don't force women. Ever. You leave, I'll write off Derek's debt as a bad business decision and put a bullet in his skull. You walk away free." She stared at him. "You'd let me go? Just like that?" "Just like that." His expression didn't change. "But before you decide, let me make you an alternative offer. Here's where it gets interesting, folks. And by interesting, I mean messy." Marco stood, walking to the window with his hands in his pockets. The Chicago skyline glittered behind him like a crown of lights. "Derek sold you for one night and $500,000. What if I told you I'd give you 10 times that amount, $5 million, and in return, you stay with me for 6 months? Sophia's brain short-circuited. "What? 6 months. You live in my home, attend events with me, be seen as mine. No other men, obviously. In return, $5 million, transferred to an account only you control." He turned to face her. "At the end of 6 months, you leave. No strings, no obligations. You'll have enough money to disappear anywhere in the world. New identity if you want it. Derek never touches you again." "Why?" The question burst out. "Why would you do that?" Marco's smile was sharp. "Because I can. Because Derek deserves to know he sold you too cheap. Because..." He paused, something shifting in his expression. "Because when I saw your photo, I didn't see a transaction. I saw a woman who deserved better than a coward for a husband." Sophia's mind raced. $5 million. Freedom. A new life. But 6 months with a mob boss, living in his house, being his. What? Mistress? Property? "And if I say no to both offers," she asked, "then you walk out that door, I kill Derek, and you go back to serving coffee and wondering what if." Marco moved closer, not threatening, just present. "Or you take a chance on something that might actually change your life." She looked up at him. Really looked. Behind the expensive suit and deadly reputation, there was something else. Something almost lonely. "I need time to think," she said. "You have until midnight." Marco checked his watch. Patek Philippe, naturally. Probably cost more than most people's houses. "It's 9:30, 90 minutes. The door isn't locked. You can leave whenever you want." He walked back to his seat, giving her space. The room felt too small and too large at the same time. Sophia's hands shook as she lifted her wine glass. In 90 minutes, she'd either walk out into her old life or step into something completely unknown. The thing about diving into deep water, honey, you never know if you'll drown or learn to swim. Sophia sat in that restaurant for 45 minutes, her wine untouched after that first sip. Marco didn't push, didn't pressure. He simply existed across the table, occasionally checking his phone, looking more like a businessman waiting for a meeting then a mob boss waiting for a verdict on a $5 million proposal. "Tell me something," she finally said. "What happens during these 6 months? What exactly would you expect from me?" Marco set his phone down, giving her his full attention. "Honesty? I need a woman on my arm for appearances. Someone who doesn't come from my world, which makes you perfect. You'd attend charity events, dinners, be seen in public with me. In private, you'd live in the east wing of my home. Your own space. Locked door if you want it. And the physical aspect?" Her cheeks burned saying it. "I won't lie and say I don't want you." His directness made her breath catch. "But I'm not Derek. I don't take what isn't offered. If something happens between us, it'll be because you want it, not because you owe it." There was something in his eyes when he said it, a flash of something that looked almost like respect. This man, this dangerous, powerful criminal, was offering her something Derek never had. Choice. "What about Derek?" she asked quietly. "What about him?" Marco's voice went cold. "He sold you, Sophia. He took money for your body. In my world, that makes him lower than dirt. Would you hurt him? Would you care if I did?" The question hung between them. Would she? Derek had betrayed her in the worst way possible, had literally put a price tag on her virginity and cashed the check. But 4 years ago, she'd loved him, believed in him. "I don't know," she whispered honestly. Marco nodded slowly. "Then here's my promise. You say yes, Derek disappears from Chicago, alive. Broke, but alive. He gets to keep breathing because you asked. That's the only reason." Sophia looked at her hands. 4 years of waitressing had left them rough, fingernails short and practical. In 6 months, they could be holding a bank statement with 7 figures. She could go to college, buy her mother that house she'd always wanted, actually live instead of just survive. "I have conditions," she said, surprising herself. Marco's eyebrow raised. The man looked intrigued. "I'm listening." "My mother. She's sick. Cancer. She needs treatments I can't afford. Part of the money, $500,000, goes to her medical care immediately. Done. I want it in writing, a contract, legal. My lawyer will have it ready by tomorrow, and I want to know what I'm walking into. Your world, your business. No surprises." Marco smiled, and for the first time, it looked genuine. "You want to know how many people I've killed? How I run my organization? The bodies in my closet?" "Yes." She met his eyes. "If I'm doing this, I'm not doing it blind. Now this is what I'm talking about. Girl walked into a mob boss's restaurant expecting to be a victim and walked out negotiating like she was closing a business deal. Derek had underestimated her. Hell, Marco had probably underestimated her. Marco stood, extending his hand. 6 months, $5 million, your mother gets treatment, Derek disappears, you get truth. Deal?" Sophia looked at his hand, took a breath, thought about her empty apartment, her cheating husband, her dying mother, her dead-end life. Then she stood and shook his hand. Deal. The contract arrived at 10 a.m. the next morning. Not via email, delivered by a man in a black suit who looked like he ate nails for breakfast. Sophia signed for it at her apartment door, still wearing her waitress uniform from the overnight shift she'd somehow managed to work on autopilot. Inside the envelope, 40 pages of legal jargon and 1 note in bold handwriting. "Read it. All of it. Tommy will pick you up at 6 p.m. M." She made coffee, the cheap kind that tasted like cardboard, and started reading. The contract was insane, but also thorough. $5 million paid in installments, $500,000 immediately to an account designated for her mother's medical care, $1 million at 3 months, $3. $5 million at the end of 6 months. Living arrangements, East Wing, private quarters, full access to amenities. Appearances, minimum 2 public events per week. Terms of dissolution. Either party could end the arrangement with 2 weeks' notice, though she'd only receive pro-rated payment if she ended it early. And then Clause 17, which made her coffee go cold in her cup. Physical intimacy is not required nor expected as terms of this agreement. Any physical relationship that develops will be entirely consensual and separate from the financial arrangement. The second party, Sophia Bennett, may decline any and all advances without breach of contract. He'd actually put it in writing, in legal terms, that she could say no. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but she knew who it was. Hello?
Did you read it? Marco's voice crisp and businesslike. I'm on page 23. The intimacy clause is on page 18. I saw it. A pause. And it's more than Derek ever gave me. The bitterness in her voice surprised her. The bar was underground, Marco said dryly. Tommy will be there at 6.
Bring whatever matters to you. Everything else we'll provide. What about my job? You're quitting. Tommy will handle it. I need to give 2 weeks' notice. Sophia. His voice softened slightly. You're not going back to that diner. You're not serving coffee to men who tip in quarters. That part of your life is over. Understand? She swallowed hard. Yes. Good. 6 p.m. Don't make Tommy wait. He gets cranky. The call ended. Sophia looked around her apartment. The sagging couch Derek had bought at a yard sale, the TV that only got 3 channels, the kitchen where the oven hadn't worked in 2 years. This place had been her cage. Small, suffocating, safe. She was about to trade it for a gilded cage with a mob boss. But at least this cage came with a view and a bank account that could change everything. Her phone buzzed. Text from her mother's hospital. Payment received for full treatment plan. Confirming start date? Sophia's hands shook. He'd already sent the money. Less than 12 hours after she'd signed nothing, just shaken his hand, and he'd already paid for her mother's cancer treatment. Derek had sold her for money he'd already spent on poker tables and call girls. Marco had bought her freedom with money that saved her mother's life. The difference wasn't subtle. At 5:45 p.m., she stood outside her apartment building with 2 suitcases, one with clothes, one with photos and her mother's recipes. Everything else could burn for all she cared. A black Mercedes pulled up at exactly 6 p.m. The man who stepped out was built like a bull, 50s, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. Tommy Russo, she presumed. Ms. Bennett, I'm Tommy. Sophia. He took her suitcases like they weighed nothing. Boss says you negotiated like a pro last night. Boss says a lot of things, I'm sure. Tommy's laugh was rough. You'll do fine, kid. Just fine. The Mercedes was more comfortable than her bed. As they drove through Chicago toward the North Shore, Sophia watched her old life disappear in the rearview mirror. Marco's home wasn't a home. It was a statement. 3 stories of stone and glass overlooking Lake Michigan, with gates that probably cost more than most houses and security that made Fort Knox look casual. Tommy pulled through the gates as they opened automatically, recognition software scanning the car. Welcome to the fortress, Tommy said with dark humor. Boss takes security serious, enemies and all that. Right, because she was now living with a man people wanted dead. That was comforting. The interior was somehow both intimidating and beautiful. Marble floors, artwork that probably belonged in museums, furniture that whispered old money and new danger. A woman in her 60s, gray hair and a perfect bun, appeared in the foyer. Ms. Bennett, I'm Elena. I manage the household. Her accent was Italian, thick and warm. Mr. Valentino is in a meeting but asked me to show you to your quarters. Elena led her up a grand staircase to the east wing. The hallway was long, lined with paintings of Italian landscapes. At the end, Elena opened double doors. Your rooms. Rooms, plural. Sophia walked into what could only be described as a luxury apartment. Living room with a fireplace, bedroom with a king bed that looked like a cloud, bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in, and a walk-in closet that was currently empty except for a note on the center island. Stylist arrives tomorrow at 10 a.m. She has carte blanche. Say yes to everything. M. Mr. Valentino thought you might need a few things, Elena said diplomatically, which was a nice way of saying her waitress wardrobe wasn't going to cut it anymore. This is. Sophia turned in a circle. This is too much. This is Tuesday for Mr. Valentino. Elena smiled. He's generous with those under his protection. Dinner is at 8 if you'd like to join, though no pressure for tonight. You must be exhausted. After Elena left, Sophia collapsed on the bed. The ceiling was ornate plaster, probably original to the 1920s when the house was built. She was lying in a mob boss's mansion, in a bed that cost more than her car, with a contract that promised her enough money to change her life. And somewhere in this house, Marco Valentino was conducting business that probably involved things she was better off not knowing. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Elena says you like the rooms. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow we start your education. M. Education in what? She wanted to ask. How to be a mob wife? How to smile while surrounded by killers? How to pretend she belonged in this world? But she was too tired to text back, too tired to think. She fell asleep in her clothes, on top of the covers, in a bed that felt like sleeping on a cloud. And she didn't dream of Derek. For the first time in 4 years, she didn't dream of her husband at all. She dreamed of whiskey-colored eyes and a smile that promised danger and salvation in equal measure. The thing about making deals with devils, sweetheart? Sometimes the devil turns out to be more honest than the angels you knew. Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For a blissful moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality crashed back. The mansion, the contract, the mob boss who'd bought 6 months of her life for $5 million. She found the coffee on a tray outside her door, along with fresh pastries that were still warm and a note. Stylist at 10. Breakfast in the sunroom if you're hungry. East staircase, second door on the left. M. The sunroom was a glass-enclosed paradise overlooking the lake. Marco sat at a table reading the Tribune, dressed in slacks and a black shirt that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to. He looked up when she entered, and something flickered in those whiskey eyes. Appreciation, maybe, or possession. Hard to tell with a man like him. "Good morning," he said, setting down his paper. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in years, actually." The admission surprised her. "Guilty conscience keeps people awake. You don't have one of those." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Eat. Elena makes the best cornetti outside of Italy." Sophia sat, hyper-aware of her wrinkled clothes from yesterday. She probably looked like something the cat dragged in while he looked like he'd stepped out of GQ. But he didn't seem to care. Just poured her coffee like this was normal, like women he'd bought didn't usually show up to breakfast looking like disaster zones. "Your mother starts treatment Wednesday," Marco said casually, spreading jam on his pastry. "I had my people talk to her doctors. They're optimistic." Tears pricked Sophia's eyes. "Thank you." "Don't thank me, it's part of our arrangement." But his voice softened slightly. "Though I did upgrade her to a private room." That part wasn't in the contract. Before she could respond, Tommy walked in, his expression grim. "Boss, we got a problem." Marco's entire demeanor changed, from casual breakfast companion to dangerous predator in a heartbeat. "What kind of problem?" "Derek kind. He's been calling around asking about his wife. Told 3 people he's planning to come here and get her back." The temperature in the room dropped about 40 degrees. Marco set down his coffee with careful precision. "Is he stupid or suicidal?" "Both, apparently." Tommy glanced at Sophia. "Sorry, Ms. Bennett, but your husband's got a death wish." Sophia's stomach churned. Of course Derek wouldn't just disappear. Of course he'd try to get her back. Not because he loved her, but because he was a coward who couldn't face the consequences of his actions. Or maybe because he wanted to renegotiate his price. Either way, he was going to get himself killed. "I'll handle it," Marco said coldly. "Where is he?" "That's the thing, boss. We don't know. He's staying off grid, probably knows we're looking." Tommy shifted his weight. "But he'll surface. They always do." Marco's jaw tightened. "Double security on the house. Nobody in or out without clearance. If Derek shows up within a mile of here, I want to know immediately." His eyes cut to Sophia. "This doesn't change anything between us. You're under my protection now. Derek doesn't get to touch you. Not now, not ever." The possessiveness in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it felt safe. This man who'd bought her was protecting her more fiercely than her husband ever had. The irony wasn't lost on her. "I should talk to him," Sophia said quietly. "Maybe I can convince him to leave Chicago like you said." "Absolutely not." Marco's voice was steel. "You don't negotiate with desperate men. They're unpredictable, dangerous. He's still my husband. On paper only. That changes tomorrow." Marco pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "My lawyer is filing your divorce papers today. Rush process. In Illinois, if both parties agree and there's evidence of abandonment, which there is given that he sold you, we can have it finalized in 30 days instead of 6 months. Sophia blinked. "You can do that?" "Sweetheart, I can do a lot of things." Marco stood, buttoning his cuff. "The stylist will be here in 20 minutes. She has instructions to outfit you completely.
Casual, formal, everything. You have meetings with me starting tomorrow. Tonight, we have dinner at the Blackstone. City Councilman's fundraiser. You'll need something appropriate. I don't know how to act at those things. Then you'll learn. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in that way that made her pulse quicken. I didn't choose you because you know my world, Sophia. I chose you because you're smart enough to learn it and strong enough to survive it. Derek underestimated you. I won't make that mistake. He left the sunroom with Tommy, their voices low and serious as they discussed what to do about Derek. Sophia sat alone with her coffee, her pastries, and the sinking realization that she'd traded one cage for another. Except this cage had a predator in it, who was starting to look less like her captor and more like her protector. And that, honey, is exactly when things get complicated. Because when the devil starts looking like a hero, you know you're in trouble. Deep, deep trouble. The stylist, a petite woman named Adriana who spoke like a drill sergeant and dressed like a fashion magazine, threw up on her, descended on Sophia's closet like a well-dressed hurricane. For 4 hours straight, she brought in racks of clothes, shoes in every color, accessories that cost more than Sophia's car, and opinions about everything. This is your life now, Adriana said, holding up a midnight blue gown that looked like liquid silk. Marco Valentino's woman doesn't wear polyester. She doesn't shop at discount stores. She walks into a room and every eye turns. Understand? I'm not his woman, Sophia protested. It's a business arrangement. Adriana's laugh was sharp. Sweetheart, I've dressed Marco's actual business arrangements. They get nice clothes. You? You're getting Valentino, Dior, Versace. He spent $200,000 on your wardrobe before I even got here. That's not business. That's personal. The words hit Sophia harder than they should have. She'd been trying not to think about what this arrangement meant, what Marco wanted from her beyond appearances. But standing in a closet full of designer clothes worth more than most people's houses, the reality was hard to ignore. Marco Valentino was investing in her, not just financially, personally. Try this. Adriana handed her a black cocktail dress. For tonight, conservative enough for a political fundraiser, sexy enough to remind everyone who you belong to. I don't belong to anyone. Then why is there a security guard outside your door? And why did Marco personally call me at 6 a.m. to make sure you'd be ready for tonight? Adriana's eyes softened slightly. Look, I've known Marco for 10 years. He's complicated, dangerous, and colder than a mob boss should be. But he doesn't do anything halfway. Whatever this is between you two, it matters to him. Don't underestimate that. The dress fit perfectly, hugging curves Sophia didn't know she had, making her look sophisticated instead of scared. Adriana swept her hair into an elegant updo, did her makeup with a professional's precision, and handed her shoes that probably cost more than her wedding dress had. There, Adriana said, stepping back. Now you look like Marco Valentino's woman. Sophia stared at her reflection. The woman looking back was a stranger. Polished, elegant, dangerous in her own way. Not the waitress who'd served coffee for tips. Not the wife who'd been sold like property. Someone new. Someone who could walk into a room of Chicago's elite and belong. The question was, did she want to? At 6:45 p.m., Elena knocked on her door. Mr. Valentino is ready, Ms. Bennett. Sophia took a breath, grabbed the small clutch Adriana had picked out, and walked downstairs. Marco stood in the foyer, talking quietly on his phone. When he saw her, he stopped mid-sentence. I'll call you back. He ended the call, his eyes never leaving her face. Sophia. Just her name. But the way he said it, like a prayer and a curse combined, made her skin tingle. Will I do? She asked, trying for confident and landing somewhere near terrified. You'll do more than that. He offered his arm, traditional and old-fashioned in a way that didn't match his reputation. You'll make every man in that room wish he'd found you first and every woman wish she was you. Ready? No. His laugh was unexpected, genuine. Good. Honest fear keeps you sharp. Let's go show Chicago what they're dealing with. The Blackstone Hotel ballroom was everything Sophia expected and nothing she was prepared for. Crystal chandeliers, men in tuxedos, women dripping in diamonds and judgment. Heads turned when they entered. Marco Valentino didn't attend many public events, and when he did, people noticed. But tonight, they weren't just looking at him. They were looking at her. Who is she? The whisper started immediately. That's not his usual type. She's beautiful. She looks scared. Marco's hand settled on the small of her back, warm and steady. Breathe, he murmured. You're doing fine. A city councilman approached, fake smile plastered on his politician face. Marco, good to see you. And who is this lovely young lady? Councilman Rodriguez, this is Sophia Bennett. Sophia, the councilman is up for re-election next year. Translation, he takes my money and does what I say. Pleasure to meet you, Sophia said, shaking his hand and channeling every ounce of grace she'd never known she had. The pleasure is mine. How did you two meet? Sophia's mind went blank. How did you explain that your husband sold you? That you'd signed a contract for 6 months and $5 million? That every person in this room would judge her if they knew the truth? Through a mutual acquaintance, Marco said smoothly, his hand tightening slightly on her back. Sophia recently moved to Chicago. I'm showing her around. It wasn't a lie, technically. Derek was certainly a mutual acquaintance, just not the kind you advertised. The evening passed in a blur of introductions, small talk, and champagne she barely touched. Marco never left her side, always there with a hand on her back or her arm, steering her through conversations with the ease of a man who'd spent his life manipulating people. But the thing was, he wasn't manipulating her. He was protecting her, running interference when questions got too personal, changing subjects when she looked uncomfortable, making sure she was never alone in the shark tank. By 10 p.m., her feet hurt, and her face ached from smiling. Marco must have sensed it because he leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. Ready to leave? God, yes. His laugh was quiet. You did well tonight. Better than well. You impressed people who don't impress easily. In the car ride home, Sophia let her head fall back against the leather seat. That was exhausting. That was Tuesday. Marco loosened his tie, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. You'll get used to it. Will I? She turned to look at him. Get used to pretending? To being someone I'm not? Who says you're pretending? His eyes met hers in the darkness of the car. That woman tonight, confident, elegant, holding her own with people who've spent their lives in power? That was you, Sophia. Maybe for the first time, that was actually you. 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm. Public events with Marco where she played the role of sophisticated companion. Quiet mornings where they shared coffee and conversation. Late nights where she lay in her massive bed wondering how her life had become so surreal. Derek hadn't surfaced again, though Tommy reported he was still in Chicago, hiding in cheap motels and making increasingly desperate calls to people who wanted nothing to do with him. Sophia's mother started chemo. The treatments were brutal, but the doctors were optimistic. Every time Sophia visited, her mother would squeeze her hand and whisper, I don't know what you did, baby girl, but thank you. If only she knew. If only Sophia could tell her, I sold 6 months of my life to a mob boss, and all I got was your survival and this lousy wardrobe worth $250,000. She was getting ready for another charity event, some museum benefit where the tickets cost $5,000 and the champagne flowed like water, when Elena knocked on her door, her face worried. Ms. Bennett, you have a visitor. Mr. Valentino said to bring you downstairs. Sophia's stomach dropped. Who? Your husband. The world tilted. Derek was here. In Marco's house. Either he was braver than she'd thought or stupider. Probably the latter. Marco stood in the main living room, arms crossed, face carved from stone. Tommy was by the door, hand resting casually on something under his jacket, probably a gun. And there, in the middle of all that dangerous elegance, stood Derek. He looked terrible, thinner, unshaven, wearing clothes that screamed desperation. Sophia, Derek said when he saw her, relief flooding his face. Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. You shouldn't be here. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. I know, I messed up, but baby, we can fix this. He moved toward her. Tommy moved too, blocking him. Derek held up his hands. I just want to talk to my wife. She's not your wife anymore, Marco said coldly. Divorce papers were served yesterday. You signed them, remember? Didn't even read them, from what my lawyer said. Just signed and took the $50,000 I offered to make you disappear. Derek's face reddened. That money's gone. I need more. And I want Sophia back. You sold her to me, Marco said softly, dangerously.
You took $500,000 and gave me your wife. Now you want her back? That's not how this works. I made a mistake. Derek's voice cracked. I was desperate. The people I owed were going to kill me. But I've thought about it, and I can't live without her. Sophia, please, come home. Sophia stared at the man she'd married 4 years ago. The man who'd promised to love and cherish her. The man who'd sold her virginity to pay his gambling debts. And she felt nothing. No love, no anger, just exhaustion. You don't want me back, she said quietly. You want money. You always want money. That's not true. Yes, it is. She moved closer, aware of Marco's eyes on her, of Tommy's hand still near his gun. You sold me, Derek. You put a price on my body and you cashed that check. You don't get to pretend you love me now just because you blew through the money and need more. Derek's face twisted. He's got you brainwashed. That's what these guys do. They manipulate women, make them think. I think clearer now than I have in years, Sophia interrupted. You want to know the truth? Marco treats me better than you ever did. He gave my mother medical care you couldn't afford. He gave me respect you never showed. He gave me a choice, which is more than you ever did. Sophia, get out. Her voice was steel. Sign the divorce papers, take whatever money Marco offered, and leave Chicago. Because if you come near me again, I won't stop him from doing what he wants to do to you. And trust me, Derek, what he wants to do involves a shallow grave and a lot of pain. Marco's smile was sharp. She's smarter than you deserve. Derek looked between them, seeing something he didn't want to see, Sophia standing closer to Marco than to him, her body language protective of the mob boss, dismissive of her husband. He'd lost her. Not to money or threats, but to his own stupidity. You'll regret this, Derek spat. Both of you. Doubtful, Marco said. Tommy, escort Mr. Bennett out, and make sure he understands that if he sets foot on my property again, we'll be having a very different conversation, the kind that ends with him learning to swim with cinderblock shoes. Tommy grabbed Derek's arm, not gently. Derek tried to pull away, started to say something else, but Tommy's grip tightened and his voice dropped low. Walk, now, while you still can. They dragged Derek out. Sophia heard him shouting threats, making promises, saying things that meant nothing. Then the front door closed and there was silence. Marco moved to the bar, poured 2 glasses of scotch, handed her one. You okay? I don't know. She downed the scotch in one burning gulp. I should feel something, right? Seeing him? But I just felt. Nothing. That's not nothing. That's freedom. Marco refilled her glass. He doesn't own you anymore. Not emotionally, not legally. Not in any way that matters. Sophia looked at him, this dangerous, complicated man who'd bought her for $5 million and somehow given her more freedom than she'd ever had. Why do you care? Really? You could have any woman you want. Why me? Why 6 months of this? Marco was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was different. Less mob boss, more man. You want the truth? That night I met you. You walked into my restaurant terrified, but you held your head up. You negotiated with me like you had power when we both knew you had none. You asked about your mother before yourself. You weren't trying to seduce me or manipulate me. You were just real. Do you know how rare that is in my world? So this is what? A social experiment? No. He moved closer, setting his glass down. This is me being selfish, wanting something good in my life for once, wanting to see what happens when you give someone like you a real chance. His hand came up, almost touching her face, then dropping. But I won't touch you unless you want me to. That's not what this is about. Sophia's heart hammered. What if I want you to? The words hung between them, dangerous and impossible. Marco's eyes darkened. Sophia, 3 weeks, she said. 3 weeks of living here, of you treating me like I matter, of feeling safe for the first time in years. 3 weeks of watching you be dangerous with everyone else but gentle with me. You think I haven't noticed? This isn't part of the deal. I know. She stepped closer. But maybe I want more than the deal. Marco's control cracked just slightly. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. She was done being careful, done playing it safe. Derek had sold her because he thought she was weak. Marco had bought her because he thought she was strong. Time to prove which one was right. She kissed him. just stepped forward and pressed her lips to his, and the world exploded. Marco's control shattered. His hands came up, framing her face as he kissed her back with an intensity that stole her breath. This wasn't gentle. It was consuming, possessive, like he'd been holding back for weeks and couldn't anymore. Sophia's fingers twisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, wanting more of this feeling, this heat, this proof that she was alive and wanted, and more than just a transaction. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. His forehead rested against hers, his hand still cradling her face like something precious. Sophia, this changes things. I know. You're sure? Because once we cross this line... She kissed him again, softer this time, but just as certain. I'm sure. For the first time in my life, I'm completely sure. What happened next, darlings, is not for me to narrate in detail. Let's just say that Marco Valentino proved he was as skilled in the bedroom as he was in the boardroom, and Sophia discovered that losing your virginity to a man who actually cared about your pleasure was significantly different than what she'd imagined with Derek. The man was thorough, attentive, and patient in ways that made her understand why women throughout history had made terrible decisions for great lovers. Hours later, she lay in his bed, not hers, his, wrapped in sheets that probably cost more than her wedding dress, with Marco propped on one elbow, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "What?" she asked. "You're beautiful when you're satisfied." Her cheeks heated. "Is that your professional opinion?" "Sweetheart, nothing about what just happened was professional." His finger traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. "You know this complicates things. Or simplifies them. How do you figure?" Sophia turned to face him fully. "Before, I was here because of a contract. Because I needed money and you needed appearances. Now I'm here because I want to be. That's simpler, isn't it?" Marco's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering behind his usual control. "You could leave tomorrow, walk away with your money. The contract says you can." "I could." She traced the scar on his collarbone, some old wound from a life she didn't fully understand yet. "But I'm not going to. At least not yet." "Why not?" "Because for the first time in my life, I'm not making decisions out of fear or obligation. I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. For now, that's enough." Marco pulled her closer, his kiss gentle this time. "You're dangerous, Sophia Bennett." "Good. I learned from the best." They fell asleep tangled together, and when Sophia woke up hours later, sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows, Marco was already awake, watching her sleep. "Creepy," she mumbled, still half asleep. "Sue me. I like looking at you." She stretched, feeling muscles protest in ways that made her blush. "What time is it?" 9, Tommy called. "We have a problem." The warmth evaporated. "Derek?" "Worse. The Castellanos." At her confused expression, Marco sat up, suddenly all business. "Rival family. They've been quiet for years, but someone told them about you. About our arrangement. Now they think they can use you to get to me." Fear spiked through her. "Use me how?" "Kidnapping. Ransom. Murder to send a message. Take your pick." Marco was already moving, pulling on clothes. "I'm moving you to the safe house until we handle this." "Safe house?" Sophia sat up, clutching the sheet. "For how long?" "However long it takes." He turned back to her, his face hard. "This is my world, Sophia. Dangerous. Violent. You wanted to choose this? This is what you chose." The word stung, but he was right. She'd walked into this knowing what he was, knowing what his life meant, but knowing theoretically and facing actual death threats were very different things. "Okay," she said quietly. "When do we leave?" Marco's expression softened slightly. "An hour. Pack light. Where we're going, you won't need designer clothes." The safe house turned out to be a cabin in Wisconsin, rustic, isolated, surrounded by woods and protected by enough security to guard a small country. Tommy came with them, along with 3 other men whose names Sophia didn't catch, and whose eyes never stopped scanning for threats. "How long do these things usually last?" she asked Marco as they settled in. "Depends. Week, month. Castellanos are unpredictable." He poured coffee with steady hands, like moving his girlfriend. Was she his girlfriend? To a guarded cabin to avoid assassination was just another Tuesday. "And then what? I live in fear forever? Hide every time someone threatens you? Or you leave?" Marco's voice was flat. Take your money, start over somewhere safe, change your name. I'll make sure you're protected even if you go. Sophia stared at him. Is that what you want? I want you alive. That's not what I asked. Marco slammed his coffee mug down, frustration finally showing. What do you want me to say, Sophia? That I want you to stay? That in 3 weeks you've become more important to me than you should be? That last night meant something I didn't plan for? Fine. All of that's true. But I'm also realistic. My life is dangerous. Everyone close to me is a target. You deserve better than that. Don't I get to decide what I deserve? Not when it comes to your safety. They argued for an hour, him trying to protect her by pushing her away, her refusing to be scared off. Finally, exhausted, they called a truce and retreated to separate rooms in the cabin. Tommy found her on the porch later, watching the sun set through the trees. He's scared. Marco, he doesn't get scared. He does when it matters. Tommy settled into the chair next to her. I've known him 15 years. Never seen him like this with anyone. Usually women are disposable to him. Assets at best. You? You got under his skin. That terrifies him more than any rival family. Because he thinks they'll kill me. Because he knows they'll try. Tommy's face was grim. And if they succeed, it'll destroy him. So he's trying to push you away before that happens. Classic Marco. Hurt himself to protect someone else. Sophia processed this. What should I do? That's up to you, kid. But my 2 cents? Men like Marco don't open up often. When they do, it means something. Question is whether you're brave enough to stick around for what that means. That night, Sophia lay in bed listening to the sounds of the Wisconsin woods and thinking about choices. She could leave, take her money, disappear, live a quiet life somewhere safe. Or she could stay, face the danger, fight for something real with a man who'd shown her more respect and passion in 3 weeks than Derek had in 4 years. It wasn't really a choice at all. She found Marco in his room, sitting by the window with a gun on the table beside him, always armed, always ready. I'm not leaving, she said from the doorway. He turned. Sophia. I'm not leaving, she repeated. I don't care about the Castellanos or any other family. I don't care that your life is dangerous. I care about you. And I'm not walking away just because things got hard. She moved closer. You said I was strong enough for your world. Prove you meant it. Stop trying to protect me from your life and let me be part of it. Marco stared at her for a long moment. Then he stood, crossed the room, and kissed her like she was air and he was drowning. You're insane. Probably. She smiled against his lips. But I'm your insane now. Deal with it. 6 months, he murmured. We agreed on 6 months. Contracts can be renegotiated. She pulled him toward the bed. I want to renegotiate. The Castellano problem resolved itself 2 weeks later in a way that Sophia learned not to ask too many questions about. Marco's explanation was vague, handled, and the expression on Tommy's face when he came back from wherever he'd been suggested, that handled involved things she was better off not knowing. They returned to the mansion in early November. Chicago was cold, the lake wind biting, but Sophia had never been happier to see the city. 2 weeks in the cabin had been intimate in unexpected ways. Forced proximity, nothing to do but talk, nowhere to hide from each other. She learned about Marco's childhood in Sicily, his father who'd been killed by rivals when he was 16, his mother who died of heartbreak 6 months later. He'd learned about her dreams of art school, her father who'd left when she was 8, her mother's quiet strength raising her alone. They'd become something in those 2 weeks. Not just a mob boss and his contracted companion, something real. Her mother finished her first round of chemo. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. The tumors were shrinking, slowly but surely. Sophia visited her at the hospital, careful not to mention where she'd been or who she'd been with. Her mother thought she'd gotten a job as a consultant for a wealthy businessman. Not entirely a lie. You look different, her mother said, studying her face. Happy. It's been a long time since I've seen you happy. I am happy, Mom. And this man you're working for? He treats you well? Sophia thought about Marco, his dangerous edges and unexpected gentleness, the way he held her at night like she might disappear, the way he listened when she talked about things that mattered. He treats me very well. Good, you deserve that, baby girl, after Derek. Her mother's face darkened. That man never deserved you. No, Sophia agreed quietly. He didn't. The divorce was finalized on November 15th. Sophia signed the papers in Marco's study, with his lawyer as witness. 4 years of marriage dissolved in 20 minutes in the stroke of a pen. She should have felt sad. Instead, she felt liberated. "You're free," Marco said after the lawyer left, pouring them both champagne. "Legally, financially, completely free. Free to do what? Whatever you want." He handed her a glass. "The contract expires in 4 months. You'll have your full 5 million. You could travel, go to school, buy a house somewhere warm, anything." Sophia sipped her champagne, studying him. "What if what I want is to stay?" Marco's hand tightened on his glass. "For another 6 months? For however long this works." She set down her champagne and moved closer. "I love you, Marco. I didn't plan to. I wasn't supposed to. But I do." The words hung between them. Dangerous, impossible, real. Marco's control wavered. "Sophia, you don't have to say it back. I know you have rules about feelings, about keeping distance, but I'm not asking for promises or forever. I'm just telling you the truth. I love you. What you do with that is up to you." Marco set his glass down very carefully. When he looked at her, his eyes were raw, stripped of the usual control. "You think I don't love you? That these months have been what? A game to me? I don't know what they've been to you. Everything." The word came out rough. "You've been everything. From that first night when you walked into my restaurant, scared but brave, to right now, standing here telling me you love me like it's the simplest thing in the world. You've been everything I didn't know I needed." Sophia's breath caught. "Marco, I love you, Sophia Bennett. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you argue with me about things that would get other people killed. I love that you chose to stay when I gave you every reason to leave. I love that you're crazy enough to love me back." He pulled her close, kissing her with an intensity that made her dizzy. When he pulled back, he was smiling, a real smile, not the dangerous one he showed the world. "Marry me," he said. Sophia's brain short-circuited. "What?" "Marry me. Not because of a contract or money or obligation. Because I love you and I want you in my life permanently. Because I want everyone to know you're mine and I'm yours." He pulled a box from his desk drawer, had he been planning this, and opened it to reveal a ring that probably cost more than a small country. "I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But my whole life is fast and crazy. This is the first thing that's ever felt right. Say yes." Sophia stared at the ring, at Marco's face, nervous in a way she'd never seen him, and felt her heart expand. "Yes. Yes? Yes, you insane man. Yes, I'll marry you." Marco's laugh was pure relief. He slid the ring onto her finger, perfect fit, naturally, and kissed her like she was his salvation. "We'll do it right this time. Big wedding, your mother there, whatever you want. I just want you. You have me." He kissed her again. "You've had me since that first night. I just didn't know it yet." They spent the evening planning a future that shouldn't make sense. A former waitress and a mob boss, a woman who'd been sold and a man who'd bought her, somehow finding love in the most unlikely place. But that's the thing about love, sweetheart. It doesn't ask permission and it doesn't follow rules. It just shows up and changes everything. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the devil you make a deal with turns out to be your guardian angel in disguise. The wedding took place in late December at Marco's estate, transformed into a winter wonderland, with enough flowers to stock 3 florists and enough security to protect a presidential inauguration. Sophia's mother, weak but determined, sat in the front row crying happy tears. Elena had orchestrated everything with the precision of a military general. Tommy, surprisingly, had gotten ordained online just to perform the ceremony. "Dearly beloved," Tommy began, his gruff voice somehow perfect for the moment. "We're gathered here to witness something I never thought I'd see. Marco Valentino getting hitched. To a woman who's way too good for him." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Chicago's elite mixed with Marco's people, an unlikely combination that somehow worked. Marco, devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, squeezed Sophia's hand. "When Marco asked me to do this," Tommy continued, "I thought he'd lost his mind. Then I met Sophia and understood. She's smart, brave, and crazy enough to love this stubborn bastard. And he loves her back with an intensity that would be scary if it wasn't so damn beautiful." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. 3 months ago, she'd been a waitress married to a coward. Now she was standing in a mansion wearing a dress that cost more than most cars, marrying a man who'd somehow become her everything. The couple has written their own vows, Tommy said. Marco, you're up first. Try not to threaten anyone. More laughter. Marco turned to face Sophia fully, his hands holding hers. When he spoke, his voice was steady, but his eyes were vulnerable. Sophia, 3 months ago, you walked into my restaurant thinking I was buying one night. What I was really buying was a chance to know someone real in a world full of lies. You could have been anyone, but you were you, brave and strong and impossible not to love. You saw past what I am to who I am, and you stayed anyway. You chose me every day even when I gave you reasons to leave. I promise to protect you, cherish you, and love you for every day I have left on this earth. You're my redemption, my salvation, and my reason. I love you. Sophia's tears fell freely now. Marco, when we met, I thought you were saving me, giving me money, protecting me from Derek, providing for my mother. But what you really did was show me who I could be. You saw strength in me I didn't know I had. You gave me choices when everyone else gave me ultimatums. You loved me when I didn't feel lovable. I promised to stand beside you, to be your partner in everything, to love you not despite who you are, but because of it. You're my unexpected miracle. I love you. Well, I'm crying, Tommy said, wiping his eyes, which is embarrassing. Do you, Marco Valentino, take this woman to be your wife for better or worse, through mob wars and family drama and whatever else your insane life throws at you? I do. And do you, Sophia Bennett, take this man to be your husband, knowing full well he's dangerous and stubborn and will probably drive you crazy? I do. Then, by the power vested in me by the internet and the state of Illinois, I pronounce you husband and wife. Marco, kiss your bride before I change my mind. Marco pulled her close and kissed her like they were the only two people in the room, in the world, in existence. The crowd erupted in applause. Somewhere, a string quartet played. Sophia's mother sobbed happy tears. And Sophia Bennett Valentino, she was keeping both names because she'd earned them, felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. The reception was legendary, dancing until 3 a.m., champagne flowing like water, a cake with 7 tiers that probably cost more than her mother's house. Marco never left her side, his hand always on her back or her waist or her hand. Constant contact, like he needed to remind himself she was real. Happy? He asked during their first dance. Ridiculously happy. She rested her head on his shoulder. How did we get here? You walked into my restaurant. I fell in love with your courage. You had terrible taste in husbands. I made you a better offer. His smile was warm. Simple, really. Nothing about us is simple. No, he agreed, but it's ours. Later, when the party wound down and they escaped to their bedroom, Marco stopped her before she could undress. I have something for you. He handed her an envelope. Inside was a deed to a building in Lincoln Park. It's yours. Do whatever you want with it. Art gallery, studio, museum. Your dream, your choice. Sophia stared at the papers, tears starting again. Marco, you gave up your dreams once because of Derek. You're not giving them up because of me. You're an artist, Sophia. It's time the world saw that. She kissed him with all the love and gratitude and joy she felt. Thank you. Thank you for saying yes to a criminal with dubious morals and excellent taste in wives. They made love that night with a tenderness that came from knowing this was forever. Not a contract with an expiration date, but a choice they'd make every day. And afterward, lying tangled together in sheets that now belonged to both of them, Sophia thought about the journey that had brought her here. Sold by a coward. Bought by a devil. Saved by love. 4 months later, Sophia's mother went into full remission. 6 months later, Sophia opened her art gallery. Small, intimate, featuring local artists who needed a break. 8 months later, Derek's body was found in Miami, dead from a drug overdose that probably wasn't an overdose. Sophia didn't ask. Some things she was better off not knowing. 1 year after their wedding, Sophia stood in the sunroom of their home, watching Marco play with their newborn daughter, Lucia, named for his mother. He looked up, caught her watching, and smiled that smile he reserved only for her. What? He asked. Nothing, she said. Everything. This life we built. He walked over, baby in his arms, and kissed her forehead. Best investment I ever made. I wasn't an investment. No, he agreed. You were a miracle. And you know what, darlings? Sometimes the devil's bargain turns out to be the best deal you ever made. Sometimes the cage you walk into becomes the key to your freedom. Sometimes love shows up in the most unlikely package and changes everything. Sophia Bennett had been sold for money, but she'd found something worth infinitely more: herself, her strength, and a love that defied every rule. Not bad for a waitress from Chicago. Not bad at all.